What was your most awkward hahaha? Oh wait, your serious moment. An old roommate wanted me to start paying more in rent because he was trying to save up to buy himself a house. I asked a coworker with what his son's name was, and he answered Legolas. After 2 seconds of laughing, I realized he wasn't laughing. His son is actually named Legolas. I went on a date with a dude in high school, and he told me that he had astral projected himself into my dreams for the past few weeks to groom me sexually for him. IDK man. Playing Smash with some buddies at their house. One guy lost in a stupid way and he jokingly threw his controller away and pretended to throw a tantrum on the floor. We were all laughing at him, but then it kept going, and then his head shifted over to the fireplace, and he started banging his head on the bricks and bleeding. That's when we realized he was having a seizure and we all freaked out. Edit. Yes, he was fine later. There were cushions on the couch and his friend knew what to do. We called 911 and the firefighters came, stuck him in a stretcher, and carried him off. He was back at school the next day and fine. Apparently he'd gotten seizures before, but I guess it was pretty rare. I'd known him for a year or so, and never had a clue. No, he was not walking around slamming his head into walls. He was on the ground and the fireplace looked something like this. He was kind of a joker who liked to act over dramatic sometimes, so we literally didn't know he was having a seizure until his head ended up smacking the bricks and started bleeding. We were playing Melee, the only true Smash game BTW. He mained Marth, but he was one of those tearless treads, so he'd also play Fox and Shake as well. When I was in middle school there was a period of a few weeks when kids would fake seizures to get a laugh. It was the hip thing to do. So, I was at the mall toy store one day and I came around the corner of an aisle and saw a kid little younger than me on the ground, absolutely killing it. I delightfully shouted, "Dude, you are good." I'll never forget his parents' faces when I looked up and figured out what was really happening. When my daughter said she had been stung by a bee and it went all of the way through her. It turned out she had been stung on the chest and back at the same time. I saw a largely pregnant woman and made a stupid comment about bet you can't wait to get that out of you. She said, not really. The baby doesn't have a heartbeat and I'm just waiting to have the stillbirth. When I was 18, I went with my then girlfriend to Las Vegas to meet her parents. We were in Florida where she lived with her aunt and uncle. I found out that her dad and mom lived in separate houses right across the street from one another for whatever reason, which was strange, but definitely not the strangest thing that would happen that trip. Her dad came over to her mom's house to meet me, and I couldn't help but notice he was dressed in a suit. I thought maybe he was just a fancy dresser. He kept asking me questions about my family and how I felt about his daughter. He seemed to like me, and we went through the trip on fairly pleasant terms, but nothing else happened of any note. Once we get back home to Florida, my girlfriend decides to tell me that her dad thought we were coming out to Vegas to get married, and he dressed up because he was planning on taking us to get married that day. She had to tell him that we had no intention of getting married in Vegas. A girl I was seeing told me she didn't believe in dinosaurs. Edit. Her issue with dinosaurs wasn't so much creationist denial as much as it was a belief in a marketing scheme companies invented to sell dinosaur toys. Also, the toy companies must have planted fossils, because how else did they get there? Edit 2. A couple weeks later I got her a dinosaur plushie. Edit 3. She was like, "That's what they want." On Wednesday, a customer asked me why our produce section was so empty, especially in terms of stuff like lettuce. I told him that it was because of extreme weather in Spain, where we source most of our stuff from. He cut off my explanation with, "Why does it matter what's going on in Spain? We are in Scotland." Someone once said to me, "Wait, you're Chinese? I always thought you were Asian." I worked at a bookstore and a customer asked why the hardcover and paperback versions of the same book didn't cost the same amount. I chuckled and said, I guess I'll have to look into that. He came back to me 5 minutes later and asked if I had found out yet. Dated a girl for 4 months a few years back. One day we are chilling at my house, ask her if she wants to watch an episode of Brian Cox's documentary Wonders of the Universe, which she told me she doesn't believe in space. She was 100% convinced that the sky was all there was, and that space was a huge cover-up by the government or some hit. At first I laughed, then we argued, and I couldn't win, because I haven't been to space to prove it exists. We didn't see much of each other after that. Was hanging out with a friend and we ran into someone he knew from a while ago. He asked how another friend was doing. My friend, how's Jerry doing? His friend, oh he's dead. Me, hahaha, oh duck, that wasn't a joke. I was hanging out with a couple of friends one day. We were just talking and then we ended up talking about our first time masturbating. One of my friend begins his tale. First thing he told us was that for the first 2 months after he started beating his meat he did not use his hands. We thought he was joking until he gave us a dead serious look. All of us immediately asked how did he get off with no hands. He described that he would sit down and use his thighs to stimulate his donja until he would blow his load. To this day the saying "look mom, no hands" has a completely different meaning to me. I used to teach drama camp. I would take suggestions from the kids on Monday, write a half-hour play based on those suggestions that night, and then they would perform it on Friday. I once had a parent come to see me after reading the script. She asked if there was a way to do a play with no conflict in it. I laughed, assuming that she was making fun of the other PC soccer moms I had to deal with. But she meant it. She wanted us to tell a story without any obstacles or confrontations. I then carefully explained to her that a story without conflict would not be a story, but just a series of occurrences. Man wants pizza. Man goes to fridge. There is pizza in fridge. Man eats pizza. Theater. Edit. A number of people mention waiting for Godot. There's plenty of conflict in that play. Between Vladimir and Estragon, Pozzo and Lucky, between the characters and the universe they are trapped in. As long as there are two parties pursuing different objectives, there is conflict. Vladimir, together again at last. We'll have to celebrate this. But how? He reflects. Get up till I embrace you. Estragon, irritably. Not now, not now. Vladimir, hurt, coldly. May one inquire where His Highness spent the night? Worked at a pet food store. A woman came in and asked where to put topical flea medicine on her kids. Frontline. I laughed way too hard. She complained to my manager, who also laughed. I work in a deli, and we had a new older lady start. I was showing her how to display the chicken breast, and she turns to me and says I'm going to have to work up to the chicken. My ex used to tie me up and hit me with raw chicken breast. This was so shocking, and out of the blue I assumed it was a joke. Nope, turns out she had just gotten out of an extremely abusive relationship. I just thought she was grossed out by raw chicken. My uncle asked my brother if he thought my other brother, who's gay, bleached his butt. My brother, telling me the story. I kept waiting for him to start laughing, or smile or anything, but he just stared at me with such a straight face. I was like, oh, you're serious? I don't know, dude, what was I supposed to say? I work as a server in a restaurant. We use little wooden trays as check presenters, and since it is an open-air restaurant we weigh down the receipts with decorative stones, shiny ones like for the bottoms of fish tanks. I dropped a check for an older couple, and when I got back the man said you should warn people that those rocks aren't chocolates. I could have broken a tooth. I get a lot of older people who like to josh around with me, so I definitely thought he was kidding. He was not. He was actually mad at me because he had tried to eat the rock, and it was obviously my fault. Met a guy, and I told him my name. He said I'll probably not remember it, I have memory problems. I said haha yeah, I'm bad with names too. Met him again 2 days later and I remembered his name. B, on the other hand, didn't remember meeting me. And when I realized it wasn't a joke and was told by his mother that he actually does have memory problems, I felt like an butt. Oh well, he doesn't remember me laughing at him. You've been visited by the safety doggo. Like this video and subscribe. You've been visited by the safety doggo. Like this video and subscribe. You've been visited by the safety doggo. Like this video and subscribe.